Welcome to Infinite Novel. Dive into epic alternate realities. All rights to original creators.
Chapter 131 Chapter 131 Soul Seal Mount Mayaboku is home to many powerful toads, each possessing unique abilities. Whether it was the toad currently before him or the one that had trapped Kakuzu, their sheer size was beyond imagination. Jiraiya couldn't directly summon them into the ninja world. Their advanced age required them to stay in areas rich with natural energy to sustain their lives. If he were to summon them, they could only remain for a brief period before having to return to Mount Mayaboku. More importantly, their massive size meant summoning them in their entirety would drain Jiraiya's chakra almost instantly. Bringing them into battle for mere seconds was utterly impractical. Only a fool would summon them in full. Even just summoning a portion like a toad's stomach nearly depleted his reserves of senjutsu chakra. It was even more taxing than summoning the three great toad brothers simultaneously. As the strange insects adjusted to their new environment, they hesitated only briefly before swarming toward Jiraiya. Their sharp mandibles clicked together, producing a nerve-wracking sound that sent shivers down his spine. "Little bugs, you can have fun on your own." Jiraiya smirked as the fleshy walls behind him opened up. With a single leap, he exited through the opening before sealing it shut with a quick hand sign. Outside, Jiraiya found that Hotaru was already dead. His corpse was shriveled, with all his blood and organs consumed by the swarm. Jiraiya approached the lifeless body and retrieved the soul vessel he had obtained through his system. Uncorking the bottle, he aimed it at the corpse and muttered an incantation. A dark aura emerged from the vessel, enveloping Hotaru's remains. Moments later, his soul was forcefully extracted and drawn into the vessel. As an elite jonin, Hotaru's soul was valuable. It could be offered to the Shinigami to perform the Reaper Death Seal. Now, Jiraiya had a means of using the technique without paying the ultimate price. After sealing the vessel, he stowed it away, knowing he had secured a powerful trump card. With a final fire jutsu, he reduced Hotaru's body to ashes. Jiraiya turned to the dark barrier nearby. Now that Hotaru was dead, the barrier had lost its power source. As expected, within a minute, it began to fade before disappearing entirely. Waiting briefly to confirm the area was safe, Jiraiya formed a hand seal, reopening a passage in the toad's stomach and stepping inside. As he anticipated, the rapidly multiplying insects had incredibly short lifespans. Every single one had perished, their bodies dissolving into the strong acid. "At least you had a good meal," Jiraiya mused, before releasing the summoning jutsu. "You've got to be kidding me. You still haven't finished them off." Jiraiya turned his gaze toward Gamabunta and the others. A jonin and a particularly resilient elite chunin were still holding on, though the rest of the root members had been wiped out. "I really am useless. I've disappointed you again." Gamaken lowered his head in self-reproach. Jiraiya sighed but wasted no time, joining the battle. With his intervention, the remaining enemies were swiftly dispatched. "Danzo, since you've chosen this path, don't blame me for what happens next." With all the root operatives eliminated, Jiraiya's sage mode faded, his eyes glinting with cold determination. He was now fully committed to taking down Danzo. Initially, he had been hesitant. Danzo's darkness could still be useful for certain matters, but the man had made his move first. Jiraiya couldn't tolerate it any longer. After incinerating the root members' corpses with a fire jutsu, Jiraiya and the three great toads returned to the battlefield where Kakuzu was still trapped. Stepping into the toad's stomach, he looked at the restrained Akatsuki member. "3 of your masks have been destroyed. That means you only have 2 hearts left." He paused, then smirked. "Actually, make that 1. Without warning, Jiraiya plunged the lightning flame blade straight into Kakuzu's chest, piercing the red-mouthed mask. Blood poured from the wound. "My patience has limits. Live or die, make your choice." Jiraiya's voice was cold and unwavering. Kakuzu stared at him, his gaze sharp. "You seriously intend to build a world free of conflict?" "I have no reason to lie," Jiraiya replied. "Swear your loyalty to me, and you'll see the truth for yourself." A moment of silence passed before Kakuzu exhaled. "Then I choose to live. But tell me, how do you plan to keep me under control?" Jiraiya smirked. "You're smarter than you look. I'll be placing a seal on your soul." He had no intention of leaving Kakuzu unchecked. Given the man's ability to replace his own heart, there were few effective ways to restrain him. Targeting his soul was the best option. Fortunately, among the sealing techniques left behind by Uzumaki Nito, there was one specifically designed for this purpose. Once inscribed onto a person's soul, it could be activated with a single hand sign, tearing the target's soul apart instantly. The technique's name was simple and direct: Soul Seal. Without further words, Jiraiya pressed his hands together, focusing his spiritual energy. In an instant, his consciousness surged into Kakuzu's body, locking onto his soul. Chains of energy wrapped around Kakuzu's essence as glowing symbols branded themselves onto it. When Jiraiya withdrew, he saw Kakuzu drenched in sweat, his face twisted in pain. Clearly, the process had been agonizing. Jiraiya himself felt the strain, his forehead damp with sweat. Performing the soul seal had consumed a significant amount of his mental energy, but now, he could finally relax. With the seal in place, Kakuzu's life and death were now entirely in Jiraiya's hands. Without this technique, keeping Kakuzu in check would have been nearly impossible. Chapter 132 Chapter 132 Reporting the battle results. Jiraiya slammed his palm into Kakuzu's stomach, releasing the seal and breaking the toad's stomach binding him. "You've done well. You can return to Mount Mayaboku now, Jiraiya said, ending his summoning technique. The three massive toads nodded before vanishing in puffs of smoke, returning to Mount Mayaboku. From now on, stop working as a bounty hunter. Use the money you've accumulated to recruit powerful shinobi, Jiraiya said with a smile. In the original timeline, all of Kakuzu's hard-earned money had been spent by Konan to buy explosive tags, leaving him with nothing. A pitiful fate, indeed. Your goal has been to build a peaceful shinobi village, but now that you're with me, you don't need to hoard your money. Our mission is to conquer the entire shinobi world, Jiraiya added. Once we unify it, every corner of the world will be like the village you envisioned. Worried that Kakuzu's love of money would hold him back, Jiraiya pressed further. Besides, if you refuse, I'll just take your money after you're dead. Either way, I'll get it. Kakuzu frowned. I don't trust that you'll have the strength to unify the world. If I spend all my money and you fail, I'll have nothing to show for it. He had worked too hard to build his fortune, and there was no way he'd give it up so easily. I have a plan. I guarantee you'll see results within 3 years. I'll become Hokage, and with the strength of all of Konoha behind me, we'll achieve our goal, Jiraiya said, his voice firm. I'm serious, Kakuzu. You have no right to refuse unless you'd prefer to die. Kakuzu quickly nodded. Your idea sounds great. I'm fully on board. It was clear there was no real choice. At least this way, he could enjoy spending some of his money. Jiraiya handed Kakuzu a ring. Wear this at all times. It'll allow me to contact you whenever I need. The ring was a communication tool Jiraiya had obtained through a signing bonus. No matter how far apart they were, it would allow instant communication. In a world with such poor communication technology, the ring was incredibly valuable. Interesting, Kakuzu said, slipping the ring onto his finger. He pulled out several summoning scrolls and released a few beating hearts. Black tendrils extended from his chest, wrapping around the hearts and pulling them into his body. The current Hokage is in his prime. He's not stepping down anytime soon. How do you expect to become Hokage in 3 years? Planning to assassinate him and stage a coup. I've heard this Hokage is the strongest in history. Even with Sage Mode, it won't be easy, Kakuzu said, eyeing Jiraiya skeptically. How I become Hokage is my business. You don't need to worry, Jiraiya said coldly. The truth was, Hiruzen Sarutobi was already grooming him to be the next Hokage. If Jiraiya earned enough merit and respect during the Second Great Ninja War, his succession would be all but guaranteed. Jiraiya's only concern was that Sarutobi might oppose his plan to unify the shinobi world. Peace-loving as he was, Sarutobi would never support a war for unification. Jiraiya was fully aware of this obstacle. He saw two potential paths: either convince Sarutobi with his vision, a nearly impossible task given Sarutobi's teachings from the first Hokage, or imprison or kill him. Yet, the idea of killing Sarutobi was repugnant. His strength was undeniable, and killing him would be a waste. The fire, wind, and earth countries are about to invade the land of rain. It will soon become a war zone. You can infiltrate the land of rain now and start recruiting powerful shinobi, Jiraiya instructed. After Jiraiya returned to the village, he planned to re-enter the land of rain for battle. With Kakuzu's strength, he would have critical backup when needed. Understood, Kakuzu said, parting ways with Jiraiya to head for the land of rain. Jiraiya continued toward the village, defeating several groups of bounty hunters along the way without much effort. Ordinary bounty hunters posed no threat to him anymore. When he finally arrived at the village, he noticed how quiet it had become. Many shinobi and civilians had already been sent to the front lines, leaving the village eerily empty. Jiraiya headed straight to the Hokage's office to report to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Well done, Jiraiya, Sarutobi said, beaming as he looked at the Rain Village headbands on the table. Jiraiya had taken down 5 jonin, far more than Sarutobi had expected. Any success I have is thanks to your training, sensei, Jiraiya said humbly. He didn't mention Danzo's attempt to ambush him. Even if he told Sarutobi, Danzo wouldn't be punished. At most, Sarutobi would scold him and reduce his authority slightly. With war on the horizon, Konoha needed every capable shinobi, especially Danzo, despite his ruthless methods. And then there was the deep bond Sarutobi shared with Danzo. Unless absolutely necessary, Sarutobi would never kill him. Even in the original timeline, when Danzo ordered an attack on Sarutobi, the Hokage had chosen to forgive him. So there was no point in telling Sarutobi. Jiraiya would deal with Danzo on his own terms. Chapter 133, Chapter 133 Promotion. If he revealed Danzo's assassination attempt to Hiruzen Sarutobi and later killed Danzo, Sarutobi would surely suspect him. And if Sarutobi learned about Danzo's actions, he would undoubtedly try to persuade him to forgive Danzo with his usual moralizing speeches. Jiraiya had no interest in listening to those words. He wasn't a saint. If someone wanted him dead, he would kill them first. Sensei, the border fortresses are nearly complete. I want to keep contributing to the village. I want to join the war effort, Jiraiya said to Hiruzen Sarutobi. I understand your desire to contribute, but you just finished a mission. You need to rest first. War meant death. No one could guarantee they wouldn't die on the battlefield. Sarutobi didn't want Jiraiya rushing to the front lines. Jiraiya's potential was too great, and if he died, it would be an enormous loss for Konoha. Sensei, I'm your student. Now that the village is at war, there's no reason for me to hide in the rear while others fight at the front, Jiraiya said, his eyes burning with determination. As the Hokage student, I must set an example and go to the battlefield. Seeing Jiraiya's passion to serve the village, Hiruzen couldn't bring himself to refuse. He couldn't extinguish Jiraiya's fervor for the village, so he finally nodded. I'll consider it. Jiraiya, the position of Umbu commander is currently vacant. I intend to appoint you as acting Umbu commander, Hiruzen said seriously. Danzo had previously held the position, but after leaving the Umbu to establish route, the position had remained unfilled. Although there were other elite shinobi capable of taking the role, Sarutobi didn't fully trust those he hadn't personally trained. After reviewing Jiraiya's recent battle report, Hiruzen had already decided to appoint him. Jiraiya's strength was beyond question, but more importantly, his will of fire burned brightly. With Jiraiya in charge, Sarutobi didn't have to worry about losing control of the Umbu. However, Jiraiya lacked management experience. Strength didn't always equate to leadership. Hiruzen planned to have Jiraiya shadow him to learn the ropes before officially handing him the position. Jiraiya's youth was another factor. If he were appointed directly, Danzo's allies would certainly object, hoping to secure the position for themselves. The role of Umbu commander was crucial in Konoha. Holding it granted a place among the village's upper ranks, with the authority to voice opinions on key matters. Many eyes were watching the position closely. By making Jiraiya acting Umbu commander first, Sarutobi could dampen opposition and avoid office disputes. Thank you, sensei, Jiraiya said, his excitement barely contained. He hadn't expected to be appointed so quickly. It was a pleasant surprise. He had thought Hiruzen would only consider him after he reached the strength of an elite jonin. As far as the village knew, Jiraiya was only at jonin level. No one knew about his sage mode. Hiruzen's decision showed complete trust. Though it was only an acting role, Jiraiya knew the position would be his as long as he didn't make any political missteps. From this moment, he had officially entered Konoha's upper ranks. The position of Umbu commander was on par with that of the Hokage's assistant or advisor. This is your new identification token, as well as the full list of Umbu personnel, Sarutobi said, handing Jiraiya a scroll and token. The scroll detailed the background of every Umbu member, their age, personality, background, specialties, and weaknesses. Make sure no information from the scroll is leaked. Memorize it, then destroy it immediately, Hiruzen instructed with a stern expression. If the scroll's contents were exposed, Konoha's Umbu would have to be rebuilt from scratch. I'm not planning to announce your appointment publicly. Once you memorize their names, you can show the token, and they will follow your orders. Most of the Umbu squads are currently undercover in the Land of Rain, disguised as shinobi from other nations or bounty hunters to gather intelligence. Only 3 squads under your direct command, and another 3 that answer directly to me, remain in the village, Hiruzen explained. When you head to the battlefield in the Land of Rain, I'll provide you with a way to stay in contact. Jiraiya nodded. The 3 squads under Sarutobi's direct command were Konoha's elite of the elite. Like him, they would never leave the village easily and were there to protect it at all costs. Their identities were highly classified and weren't listed in the scroll. You also no longer need to hide your relationship with Tsunade, Hiruzen said with a smile. Jiraiya's eyes lit up. If their relationship could be made public, he and Tsunade could finally share a bed. Tsunade had refused to do so before because their relationship wasn't official. Without the recognition, she felt it wasn't appropriate. The decision to keep it secret had come from the Senju clan, who feared Jiraiya's association with them would provoke Hiruzen's suspicion and hinder his political advancement. The Senju clan hoped Jiraiya would rise to power and change Konoha's treatment of them. If they moved too soon, it could destroy Jiraiya's future and cost them dearly. Now that Jiraiya had become acting Umbu commander, he was officially part of Konoha's upper ranks and could advocate for the Senju clan's interests. With Hiruzen no longer opposing close ties between Jiraiya and the Senju, there was no reason to keep the relationship hidden. And with that, Tsunade would have no excuse to refuse him anymore. Chapter 134, Chapter 134, Isamu's shock just thinking about spending the night with Tsunade had Jiraiya excited. Finally, he could tell her the story about the old man and the wheelbarrow. Sensei, I'll always put the safety and stability of the village first. If anyone ever threatens that, no matter how close they are to me, I won't hesitate to cut them down. Jiraiya solemnly promised Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen nodded, reassured by Jiraiya's words. With that, Jiraiya left the Hokage's office. As soon as he stepped out of the Hokage building, he ran into Danzo Shinura. Danzo's single eye widened with surprise. He clearly hadn't expected to see Jiraiya here. His initial shock quickly gave way to a dark glare as he locked eyes with Jiraiya. In that moment, Danzo knew the truth: his entire root squad had been wiped out. There was no other way Jiraiya could have made it back to the village. Danzo's heart churned with disbelief. He had sent an elite Jonin-led team after Jiraiya, along with a bounty on the black market that drew in numerous bounty hunters. Jiraiya, even with the training he'd undergone at Mount Mayaboku, shouldn't have survived. Yet here he stood, and Danzo's team had not returned. The conclusion was obvious. His root squad had been annihilated. Danzo's mind raced. Did Hiruzen send someone to protect Jiraiya in secret? But he immediately dismissed the thought. He'd already investigated thoroughly before sending the assassination order. Hiruzen hadn't assigned any guards to Jiraiya. Jiraiya had left the village alone. Danzo, why are you looking at me like that? You seem surprised to see me, Jiraiya said with a smile. He didn't mention the assassination attempt outright. I'm just surprised the fortress was completed so quickly, Danzo said, forcing a smile. But inwardly, he was bleeding. He had spent countless resources and time cultivating that squad. Their loss was a significant blow to his power in the village. Jiraiya's tone made it clear he knew about the assassination attempt. Danzo's mind filled with worry. Had Jiraiya told Hiruzen? If he had, the consequences would be disastrous. We'll handle our business privately. I haven't told anyone, Jiraiya said, stepping closer. His seemingly harmless smile carried a hidden threat. I have no idea what you're talking about. Danzo feigned ignorance. As long as he didn't admit it, he could shift the blame onto Root acting independently, thus escaping full responsibility. Admitting it would ruin any chance he had of becoming Hokage. No one would back someone who targeted the village's geniuses. Danzo's denial didn't surprise Jiraiya. Without another word, he headed for the Senju compound. Danzo's lone eye followed Jiraiya's retreating figure, filled with malice. Damn brat. How dare you challenge me? You're courting death. Danzo wasn't giving up. He began planning to personally lead Root on the next attack. Jiraiya had to be eliminated. After standing there for a moment, Danzo headed to the Hokage's office. His nerves tightened. If Jiraiya had told Hiruzen, the game was over. But Hiruzen's face remained neutral, which eased Danzo's fears. As Jiraiya had promised, he hadn't exposed the assassination attempt. Arrogant brat. Does he really think he can handle me on his own? Foolish. Danzo's irritation only grew. Jiraiya's decision to handle things privately felt like an insult. Hokage-sama, I formally request to lead the offensive against Omega Court, Danzo announced. For someone like Danzo, war was a perfect way to accumulate merit and boost his reputation as stepping stone to the Hokage seat. The command is yours, but make sure to weaken certain clans during the mission, Hiruzen replied. Even without Danzo's request, Hiruzen had already planned to give him command. They needed to use this war to thin the ranks of the Uchiha and other powerful clans. No need to worry. I'll handle it. Danzo's smile was cold. Meanwhile, at the Senju compound. What? The Hokage made you acting head of the Umbu? Isamu stared at Jiraiya, shocked. I don't believe you. I have no reason to lie, Jiraiya replied, showing Isamu his new identification. Isamu's eyes widened further. Jiraiya had only just been promoted to Umbu squad leader, and now he was acting Umbu commander? His rise through the ranks was unprecedented. Stop being so dramatic, Jiraiya teased. Jiraiya had come to see Isamu before heading to Tsunade. He needed the Senju clan's blessing before making his relationship with Tsunade public, and he could hardly wait to spend the night with her. Chapter 135, Chapter 135, quite the tough choice. Isamu's whole body trembled with excitement as he stared at the token in Jiraiya's hand. His breathing quickened, almost as if he were a man who had been alone too long and suddenly encountered a breathtakingly beautiful woman. Jiraiya instinctively took a step back, a little wary of Isamu's intense reaction. After a few moments, Isamu finally calmed down and, with some embarrassment, said, I'm sorry, I got a bit carried away. Lost my composure there. Jiraiya nodded, understanding his current mood. The Senju clan's position in Konoha was precarious. The clan's elder was nearing the end of his lifespan, and Uzumaki Mito, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, was in the same situation. Once they were gone, the clan's power would be significantly weakened. Within the clan, Isamu was the only remaining jonin, and while an elite one, he was still just one man. Standing alone, he couldn't resist the pressure from the village's leadership. The Senju clan's extinction seemed like a real possibility. Now, Jiraiya had just been promoted to acting commander of the Umbu. He finally had the authority to speak up for the Senju and protect their interests. With his promotion, the Senju clan had a lifeline. Even if Jiraiya couldn't return them to their former glory, ensuring the clan's survival was almost guaranteed. For the first time in a long time, things were looking up for the Senju. Not bad, Tsunade. Isamu thought to himself that it was all thanks to Tsunade choosing Jiraiya as her partner. Her foresight had helped pull the clan back from the brink. Brother-in-law, come with me to see the elders. We need to share the good news, Isamu said, grabbing Jiraiya's hand with unrestrained enthusiasm. Jiraiya quickly yanked his hand back, maintaining a healthy distance. The way Isamu was looking at him seemed off. Suspicious, Jiraiya's guard went up immediately. He definitely had no interest in crossing that line. He followed Isamu to meet the three elders of the Senju clan. When they heard that Jiraiya had been promoted to acting Umbu commander, they were stunned into silence. They hadn't expected him to rise so quickly. In their minds, for Jiraiya to even qualify as Umbu commander, he would need the strength of an elite jonin and several years of accumulated merit. They thought that process would take years, at best. But Jiraiya had achieved it in record time, and it was a huge relief. Even their gaze toward him had shifted, tinged with admiration and maybe a hint of something else. Jiraiya felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. What's with these looks? Elders, I'd like to formally announce my relationship with Tsunade, Jiraiya said, taking a deep breath. The head elder frowned slightly. Isn't it a little early to make your relationship public? Although Jiraiya and Tsunade's relationship was well known, it hadn't been made official yet. As long as it stayed that way, there was still room for denial. Making it public would be irreversible. The Senju were still seen as a threat by Konoha's higher UPS, and Jiraiya was only the acting Umbu commander. A public announcement could invite unnecessary trouble and political obstacles, something the elders wanted to avoid. Perhaps it would be better to wait a little longer, the elder suggested in a diplomatic tone. Jiraiya's position as acting Umbu commander gave him significant standing, and the elders now treated him with more respect. Elders, your concerns are understandable, but unnecessary, Jiraiya said firmly. Publicly announcing our relationship won't hurt my political future. My teacher, the Hokage, supports our relationship. The elder's eyes lit up at Jiraiya's words. The Hokage supports you and Tsunade, the head elder asked, hardly able to believe it. Exactly. I assured my teacher that the Senju clan poses no threat to Konoha. If anything were to happen, I would personally lead the Umbu to deal with it. Because of that, he has no objections to my relationship with Tsunade or to my closeness with the Senju clan. The three elders beamed with joy. Sarutobi Hiruzen's approval signified a softening stance toward the Senju. Without Jiraiya, there was no way he would have allowed such a close connection. Our Senju clan has always been loyal to Konoha. We've never harbored any ill intentions, and will prove that with our actions, the third elder declared solemnly. Jiraiya, from now on, the Senju clan is your family. You have full access to our resources and shinobi, and you're free to announce your relationship with Tsunade whenever you wish, the head elder said seriously. Barring any surprises, Jiraiya was well on his way to becoming the official Umbu commander, a key figure in Konoha's leadership. The Senju elders were eager to secure his goodwill. Jiraiya gave a small smile, satisfied with their sincerity. In a few days, I'll appoint you as an Umbu squad leader, he told Isamu. Isamu had no official role in the village and spent most of his time within the Senju compound or getting into trouble. As a skilled elite jonin, it was a waste to leave him idle. Jiraiya intended to put him to work under his command. Thank you, brother-in-law, Isamu exclaimed, clearly thrilled. Being an Umbu squad leader gave him real authority and the ability to discreetly support the Senju. We're family, no need to be so formal, Jiraiya said with a chuckle. Well, I'm off to find Tsunade. Having finished the important matters, Jiraiya didn't want to linger any longer. As he approached Tsunade's residence, Jiraiya's thoughts turned mischievous. Should we start with lotus position, or maybe old man style? Decisions. He scratched his head, feeling a little conflicted. Chapter 136, wish fulfilled. Maybe I should just use all the techniques from the manga. After hesitating at the door, Jiraiya made up his mind he'd try every technique without overthinking it. With that, he pushed the door open and stepped into Tsunade's residence. Jiraiya, you're back. Tsunade's face lit up as soon as she saw him. She ran straight to him and wrapped him in a tight hug. One mission, and you've changed this much, Jiraiya teased, giving her a smile as he took in her appearance. Without another word, he scooped her up in his arms and kissed her deeply. It wasn't until Tsunade grew weak in the knees that Jiraiya set her back down. I have good news. We can make our relationship public now. Really? Tsunade's eyes widened with excitement. She'd been waiting for this moment, though she'd held back out of concern for Jiraiya's future. It's true. I'm now the acting Umbu commander, and the Hokage doesn't oppose my ties with the Senju clan. He even supports us making our relationship public. There won't be any consequences for us now, Jiraiya reassured her with a firm squeeze. Tsunade couldn't help but let out a soft gasp, her eyes filled with affection and desire. Since I'm the acting Umbu commander now, what kind of reward will you give me? Jiraiya murmured in her ear. Anything you want, Tsunade whispered back with her eyes closed. You said it. No take-backs. Jiraiya lifted her princess style and carried her toward the bathroom. Tsunade knew what he had in mind. Though a little nervous and shy, she didn't resist. They bathed together, and when they were clean, Jiraiya carried her to the bedroom. Let's just follow the manga, he teased. Tsunade didn't reply, her face was already flushed with embarrassment. At his request, she lay down on the bed, and Jiraiya joined her. Some time later, both of them were lying on the bed. Jiraiya was in a contemplative sage mode, while Tsunade basked in the lingering afterglow. Because it was Tsunade's first time, Jiraiya had been careful not to push her too hard. Since they were making their relationship public, he planned to move into the Senju clan residence. Not again. Wait until you get back from seeing the Hokage, Tsunade gasped, startled by his stamina. She still hadn't recovered. Jiraiya chuckled, got dressed, and left the Senju compound for the Hokage's office. When he arrived, he saw Danzo already there. Jiraiya, you'll lead an Umbu squad to accompany Elder Danzo on a mission to attack a key town in the land of rain, Hiruzen Sarutobi ordered. Jiraiya gave Danzo a quick glance, a cold smile forming in his mind, but nodded. Yes, sensei. I'll work with Elder Danzo and capture the town. It was obvious this joint mission had been Danzo's suggestion. Hiruzen wouldn't assign Jiraiya to work with Danzo unless Danzo had a motive. Danzo had likely proposed this in hopes of eliminating him. Traveling to the land of rain would present countless opportunities for Danzo to strike, but Jiraiya saw this as a blessing in disguise. It would also give him plenty of chances to deal with Danzo for good. Sensei, Isamu is an elite jonin with impressive skills. He's always wanted to serve the village. I'd like to bring him along and assign him to the Umbu under my command, Jiraiya said. Approved, Hiruzen responded without hesitation. Jiraiya had repeatedly reassured the Hokage that he had the Senju clan under control and that they wouldn't do anything to harm the village's interests. Hiruzen's wariness of the Senju had significantly decreased. Lord Hokage, you cannot allow Isamu to join the Umbu. Danzo protested sharply. You've already stepped down from the Umbu. Stay out of it, Hiruzen said, his tone unyielding. My decision is final. Hiruzen had no intention of arguing with Danzo over this matter. Go prepare. You'll leave this afternoon, he said, cutting off any further objections. Danzo's face darkened, but he left without another word. Jiraiya, Isamu is strong, and it's fine to take him to the battlefield. However, don't let him accumulate too much prestige or merit. He should remain a tool for you, never your equal. Understood, Hiruzen warned. Hiruzen wanted the Senju clan to support Jiraiya but didn't want them using him as a stepping stone. Don't worry, sensei. I've got it under control, Jiraiya replied. After leaving the Hokage's office, Jiraiya gathered his Umbu squads. Orochimaru led one squad, Tsunade another, and Mitsune the third. Isamu would act as the overall field commander and Jiraiya's bodyguard. This arrangement, however, hadn't yet been approved by Hiruzen. Jiraiya planned to report it after the mission's completion. By midday, they gathered at the village gates. Danzo arrived with 8 of his most trusted root members, a lineup that included an elite Jonin, 3 Jonin, and 4 elite Shinin. These were Danzo's core loyalists, and he had brought them all with one purpose: to find the perfect opportunity to eliminate Jiraiya. Chapter 137 Danzo's impatience. Let's move. Danzo glanced at Jiraiya and the group of Umbu members behind him, his voice cold and indifferent. Even though Jiraiya had a large group of shinobi with him, Danzo still had many ways to separate Jiraiya from them. It wouldn't stop him from eliminating him. Danzo and his root shinobi set off, but the Umbu didn't move, standing still as if they hadn't heard a word Danzo said. Let's go. Jiraiya's tone was calm as he gave the order. Only then did the Umbu begin to move. The Umbu answered to Jiraiya and the Hokage, not Danzo. Their destination was a fortified town with an iron mine, a strategic resource for crafting ninja tools and critical to the Rain Country. Capturing it would come at a heavy cost for Konoha, but it had to be taken. With control of the iron mine, Konoha could sustain itself through war using the captured resources. Large-scale wars were a battle of each village's economy and resources. Supplies dwindled quickly, and compensation had to be paid to the families of fallen shinobi, both draining financial reserves. But with control of the Rain Country's iron mine, Konoha could ease its financial burden by using the enemy's resources. During wartime, resource-rich towns like these were prime targets for enemy forces. Konoha's mission was clear: take the town. Naturally, such an important location would be well defended. With Jiraiya leading the Umbu and Danzo leading the route, capturing the town wouldn't be easy. Especially when both men were at odds, there was a high chance of betrayal once the battle began. Both of them knew it. Jiraiya planned to deal with Danzo before the town assault even started. He had no intention of letting Danzo stab him in the back during the fight. And Jiraiya knew Danzo was thinking the same thing. They both understood that only one of them would return to the village after this mission. One of them had to die here. Danzo and Jiraiya pressed forward at full speed until they crossed into Rain Country's territory. Only then did they slow down. Moving too quickly in enemy territory increased the risk of running into traps. The Fire Country had already begun its invasion of the Rain Country, and both the Wind and Earth countries had followed suit, sending large numbers of shinobi. Rain Country couldn't hope to defend all its borders. Instead, they abandoned the outer regions and concentrated their forces on defending key towns for a prolonged war. That didn't mean the borders were left unguarded. The Rain shinobi had littered the area with traps, deadly ones. A single misstep could cost a life. Among Danzo's root shinobi were members of the Hyuga clan. The Byakugan's heightened perception made most traps easy to spot and disarm in advance. Thanks to this, they avoided several traps and destroyed them before moving on. After 2 days of travel through Rain Country, they arrived at one of Konoha's forward operating bases. The base housed over 200 Konoha shinobi, most of whom were Chunin. Only a few were Jonin. The base wasn't far from the town they were planning to attack. Jiraiya and Danzo had come to reinforce the troops stationed there for the upcoming assault. As soon as they arrived, 3 Konoha Jonin stepped out to greet them. Elder Danzo, Lord Jiraiya. They bowed respectfully before leading the 2 commanders into a small wooden cabin. Danzo immediately claimed the head seat, while Jiraiya casually took an open spot. How are the town's defenses? Danzo asked one of the Jonin. The Rain forces have stationed 500 shinobi in the town. There are 11 Jonin and 2 elite Jonin. We don't know if there are additional hidden forces. The town has been sealed off, no one's allowed in or out, so we can't get more detailed intelligence. Danzo nodded, considering the report. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed slightly. The defenses are stronger than I expected. With no elite Jonin among Konoha's forces here, they were at a clear disadvantage. Worse, they couldn't infiltrate the town for deeper reconnaissance. Jiraiya suspected hidden forces, perhaps even more elite Jonin, were stationed there. After all, no commander would reveal their true numbers. Underselling their strength could lead to the enemy underestimating them and bringing fewer troops, leaving them vulnerable to an ambush. Given the town's importance, it was likely there were hidden reinforcements. When will the rest of the reinforcements arrive? Danzo pressed. We'll be joined by members of the Uchiha, Hyuga, and Akimichi clans tomorrow, one Jonin replied. The Konoha shinobi already present, including the 3 Jonin, were all non-clan ninjas. When we left, Lord Hokage had already ordered us to take the town as quickly as possible, Danzo said. Both the Wind and Earth countries have also sent forces into Rain Country. they won't overlook this resource-rich location. We need to take it before they arrive and secure it for Konoha. Danzo's tone darkened. If we don't move quickly, the Wind and Earth Shinobi will show up to claim their share of the spoils. Iron was a critical wartime resource vital for crafting ninja tools. Jiraiya, Danzo said, your training at Mount Mayaboku has made you the strongest among us. Rest for now. Then scout the town's defenses personally. Chapter 138. Chapter 138. You're not worthy, so eager to get rid of me, huh? You must be desperate. Well, that works just fine for me. Jiraiya thought to himself, fully aware that Danzo had sent him on this mission to create an opportunity to eliminate him. He nodded slightly, not showing any resistance to the task. I'll head to Tetsuishi town alone and scout the situation there, Jiraiya announced. Danzo's lips curled into a cold smile. How naive. Seeing Jiraiya agree to go alone only confirmed his belief that Jiraiya was foolish. Jiraiya clearly understood Danzo's malicious intentions, yet he still agreed to act alone. Danzo assumed that Jiraiya believed he wouldn't dare attack during wartime. Lord Jiraiya, going alone is too dangerous. You should bring backup, a civilian Jonin suggested. More people will only risk exposure. I'll go alone, Jiraiya replied firmly, rejecting the offer. Since Danzo was so determined to walk into his own death, Jiraiya was more than happy to oblige. After resting at the base for an hour, Jiraiya departed alone for Tetsuishi town. Tsunade had wanted to accompany him, but he turned her down. He had also ordered all Umbu to stay at the base unless he commanded otherwise, a statement made deliberately in front of Danzo to mislead him. Jiraiya already had a fully formed plan to eliminate Danzo. The Konoha base was a fair distance from Tetsuishi town. Kakuzu, what's your position in Tetsuishi town? Not long after leaving, Jiraiya used his communication ring to speak to Kakuzu. Before leaving the village, Jiraiya had already instructed Kakuzu to lie in wait around Tetsuishi town. I'm in a valley to the right of Konoha's outpost, Kakuzu's voice sounded through the ring moments later. Prepare for battle. There's an elite Jonin, 3 Jonin, and 4 elite Chunin, Jiraiya said, revealing the strength of Danzo's forces. As for Danzo himself, Jiraiya would handle him personally. Understood, Kakuzu answered curtly. Jiraiya headed toward the valley where Kakuzu was hiding. Danzo has already led his route operatives out of the base, Isamu's voice echoed through the ring shortly after. Jiraiya had secretly given Isamu a communication ring as well. Leave the base in a little while. Come alone. Head to the right side of the outpost, Jiraiya instructed. Danzo, 2 elite Jonin should give you a little surprise, Jiraiya murmured with a smirk. While Danzo was scheming against Jiraiya, Jiraiya was doing the same in return. Danzo didn't know about the communication rings and believed Isamu would obediently stay at the base without interfering. Jiraiya only called for Isamu because he and Kakuzu were more than enough to wipe out Danzo's subordinates. More importantly, he wanted as few witnesses as possible. If too many people knew Danzo had been killed, it would increase the risk of exposure. Jiraiya still aimed to become Hokage. Even if Danzo was in the wrong, news of this event could damage his reputation. Besides, he didn't need that many people to deal with Danzo. Danzo wasn't as powerful as he would be in the original story. Orochimaru hadn't started his research yet, so Danzo didn't have the enhanced arm that made him so dangerous. Jiraiya was confident in his ability to defeat him alone. I'm leaving the base now, Isamu's voice came through the ring. I got it, Jiraiya replied. When Jiraiya reached the base of the valley where Kakuzu was hiding, he stopped and waited for Danzo and his forces to arrive. He remained outside the valley since one of Danzo's operatives was from the Hyuga clan. If they used the Byakugan, they might detect Kakuzu, ruining the ambush. Using the Eye of Insight, Jiraiya saw Danzo and his route operatives approaching quickly. Among them was a member of the Abarame clan, one of the 3 Jonin. They had placed a tiny insect on Jiraiya to track his movements. Jiraiya had noticed the insect immediately but pretended not to. Soon, Danzo and his operatives reached the base of the valley. Well, Danzo, you're truly cautious. Lacking confidence in yourself, Jiraiya taunted with a grin. His sarcasm was unmistakable. Danzo chuckled darkly. Jiraiya, I'll give you one last chance to join the route. If you agree, you can return to the village unharmed. Otherwise, this will be your grave. Danzo still hoped to recruit Jiraiya. With someone of Jiraiya's talent in his faction, his chances of becoming Hokage would greatly improve. You think you and your men can kill me? You're overestimating yourselves, Danzo. Today will be your end, Jiraiya declared coldly, drawing the lightning flame blade and pointing it at Danzo. Danzo's face darkened. Jiraiya, if you insist on being stubborn, don't blame me for what happens. Attack! At Danzo's command, 2 Jonin and the elite Jonin rushed at Jiraiya. The remaining operatives spread out, forming a barrier of interlinked purple light to trap Jiraiya. Danzo was taking no chances. He needed to ensure Jiraiya couldn't escape. If Jiraiya managed to flee, Danzo would lose his chance forever, and if this plan were exposed, even Danzo's place in Konoha would be in jeopardy. Danzo would do whatever it took to kill Jiraiya today. Chapter 139. Chapter 139. The plan succeeds. The elite Jonin from the route, along with 2 other Jonin, moved at blinding speed, leaving only after images as they drew their katana and charged at Jiraiya. They didn't use any ninjutsu. They aimed for close quarters combat to suppress Jiraiya and deny him the chance to form hand signs. Once they pinned him down, Danzo would lead the other route shinobi in long-range ninjutsu attacks. The plan was to overwhelm Jiraiya before he could counter. If executed perfectly, Jiraiya would be eliminated in no time. This strategy had been meticulously crafted in advance, leaving no room for error. All three Jonin wielded katana forged from special chakra-conducting metals, the blades gleaming with dangerous, icy light. Jiraiya, however, saw through their plan. Instead of panic, a mocking smile spread across his face. Their plan was sound, using close-quarters combat to limit his movements while the rest attacked from a distance. But they'd made one fatal miscalculation. Jiraiya's hand seal speed was far beyond what they expected. And he wasn't fighting alone. Twin flame tigers. Jiraiya threw his lightning flame blade forward and immediately formed hand seals at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, the blade erupted with powerful fire and lightning chakra. A dragon crackling with lightning and a tiger cloaked in roaring flames materialized before him. Both creatures let out deafening cries as they charged at the three root Jonin. This twin flame tiger's technique combined the lightning release thunder dragon and fire release flaming tiger into one. Jiraiya hadn't learned this from any system. It was a ninjutsu he developed himself after long and arduous training. He hadn't yet perfected the fusion of fire and lightning chakra to achieve seamless synergy. Still, even in its incomplete state, the jutsu was fearsome. The three charging root Jonin hadn't expected Jiraiya to unleash such a powerful ninjutsu so quickly. With no time to turn or retreat, they rapidly formed hand signs to counter. Danzo, standing in the rear, was equally stunned. He hadn't anticipated Jiraiya's swift execution of such a devastating jutsu, rendering their strategy ineffective. Worse yet, his three elite shinobi were now in grave danger. Danzo's hands flew through hand seals. He couldn't let his men be struck down before his eyes. Wind release, vacuum sphere. Danzo exhaled a barrage of compressed wind bullets like speeding projectiles, raining down on the lightning dragon and flaming tiger. The storm of wind bullets, dense as torrential rain, struck the creatures relentlessly. While the chakra-based entities couldn't be dispersed outright, the wind attacks managed to sap their energy and slow them down. This brief delay bought the three root shinobi enough time to complete their own jutsu. Each launched powerful attacks toward the dragon and tiger, halting their advance. Jiraiya watched with a calm smile. He never intended for this jutsu to defeat Danzo's elite forces outright. Danzo's team consisted of the roots best capable of wiping out small and medium shinobi villages if unleashed. Jiraiya only needed to suppress the three Jonin for a moment long enough for Kakuzu to strike. Now, Jiraiya muttered softly into a communication ring. No sooner had the words left his mouth than three beams of chakra, one crimson red, one earth brown, and one deep blue shot out from a nearby valley, all aimed at the root Jonin entangled by the dragon and tiger. These dense, terrifying chakra blasts radiated immense energy. This had been Jiraiya and Kakuzu's plan all along. Jiraiya would bait the enemy, while Kakuzu waited in hiding for the perfect moment to unleash his deadliest attacks. If they could kill or cripple even one elite root shinobi, taking down Danzo and the rest of his forces would become almost a certainty. The roots barrier was still expanding and hadn't fully sealed. The chakra beams pierced through it effortlessly, striking the three Jonin squarely. Blinding light enveloped the area, and a massive chakra explosion shook the battlefield. The beams had come so suddenly, and at such speed, that Danzo had no time to react. By the time he realized what had happened, it was already too late to intervene. The area where the three root Jonin had stood was now a massive crater, with the ground fractured and collapsing inward. Danzo's expression darkened. Even with their strength and defensive gear, surviving such an attack unscathed was impossible. If they were alive at all, they would be gravely injured and weakened. In that moment, Danzo finally understood Jiraiya's composure. It wasn't arrogance, it was the confidence of a man with allies. He had walked straight into Jiraiya's trap. When the chakra blast subsided, only two figures remained in the crater, one elite Jonin and one regular Jonin. The other Jonin had been completely obliterated, leaving no trace behind. The surviving Jonin had lost an arm, while the elite Jonin, though outwardly unharmed, had sustained internal injuries. Danzo clenched his fists. He knew the situation had taken a disastrous turn. Chapter 140. Chapter 140. Facing Danzo, the root Jonin who had lost an arm had their strength reduced by more than half. They could no longer fight at full Jonin level. Kakuzu had only managed to kill one Jonin with his chakra beam, which was somewhat underwhelming. However, the mission was still accomplished. Roots' forces had been severely weakened. One Jonin was dead, another critically injured, and even an elite Jonin had sustained wounds. By the time Isamu arrived to join forces with Kakuzu, they could wipe out the remaining root ninja. Although Kakuzu's current chakra beam was not as powerful as his attacks in the original story's later stages, it was still a formidable jutsu. Most ordinary Jonin struck by such a technique would be as good as dead, with no chance of survival. Even elite Jonin would barely make it out alive if hit directly. The only reason two root members survived was due to their extensive use of defensive ninja tools. From his elevated position, Jiraiya clearly observed with his perceptive eyes that just before the chakra beam struck, three elite root members had summoned numerous defensive tools to absorb part of the attack's energy. The root Jonin who died had also summoned defensive tools, but knowing they wouldn't be enough, he resorted to a desperate measure, a powerful sealing jutsu that required sacrificing his life. The jutsu absorbed more than half of the chakra beam's energy, drastically weakening it. This allowed the elite Jonin and the other Jonin to quickly follow up with defensive jutsu and survive. The root ninja who used the sealing jutsu had made the decision without hesitation. His mission was everything to him, and his life was expendable, a result of Danzo's brainwashing. If he had hesitated for even a moment, he would have lost the chance to activate the seal. In that case, only the elite jonin would have had a slim chance of survival, and the other jonin would have died without a doubt. Even if the elite jonin survived, they would have been critically injured. Root ninja really are emotionless war machines, Jiraiya thought to himself. He reached out, and the lightning flame blade returned to his hand through chakra manipulation. As the barrier was about to regenerate, Kakuzu burst through the mountain valley and into the barrier. Chakra beam attacks consumed an enormous amount of chakra and put immense strain on Kakuzu's body, so he could only use it once per day. Any more, and his body would be unable to endure it. Since he couldn't use ranged attacks again, there was no reason for Kakuzu to remain hidden. Now that he had broken into the barrier, it was effectively useless, as the root ninja couldn't maintain it while fending off attacks. Danzo, upon seeing a strange-looking ninja charge into the barrier, let out a small sigh of relief. It seemed Jiraiya only had one ally, which was within his expectations. He had been contemplating retreat in case Jiraiya had multiple reinforcements. With only Kakuzu joining the fight, Danzo decided to stay. Although one jonin was dead and another injured, Danzo's side still had the numbers advantage. By coordinating their attacks, they could still eliminate Jiraiya and Kakuzu, although the pressure had significantly increased. Just stall them. An elite jonin will arrive soon to assist you. Together, you can finish them off, Jiraiya commanded Kakuzu. I don't need anyone else's help. I can handle them myself, Kakuzu responded coldly, staring down the root ninja. His body began to twist and writhe as masked creatures emerged from within him. Kakuzu, how much is Jiraiya paying you? I'll pay double. Danzo immediately recognized him after seeing his technique. Given Danzo's vast network of intelligence through Root and the Umbu, he was well aware of Kakuzu's reputation as a bounty hunter. However, Danzo did not know about Kakuzu's 5 hearts. Still, he knew Kakuzu was a difficult opponent and deeply motivated by money. Danzo believed he could sway him. Money is great. I love it. But I can kill you and still take everything you have, Kakuzu replied flatly. His soul was bound to Jiraiya through a sealing jutsu, meaning Jiraiya controlled his life and death. There was no way Kakuzu could betray him, no matter how much Danzo offered. Perhaps you don't know who I am, Danzo said. I am Danzo of Konoha, the one who controls much of the village's power. If you kill Jiraiya and join me, I can offer you more money than you could ever imagine. Killing me here will only earn you pocket change, and you won't even succeed. You don't have the strength to defeat me. I admire talent. Help me eliminate Jiraiya, and I'll even send Konoha Ninja to help you get revenge on Takigakure. Danzo had done his homework, knowing Kakuzu held a grudge against his former village. Kakuzu's response came in the form of 2 devastating jutsu. A wave of scorching fire and a ferocious gust of wind surged toward Danzo. Root's elite jonin, the wounded jonin, and another jonin near Danzo all launched their own jutsu to counter the onslaught. Jiraiya, now a blur, surged forward with his lightning flame blade, its lightning radiance intensifying as he targeted Danzo. You've risen quickly, Jiraiya. You even made me feel threatened. But you're not ready to take me on, Danzo said coldly, forming hand seals. A massive wind blade tore through the air, slicing toward Jiraiya. This universe grows with every follower. Are you part of Infinite Novel yet? Chapter 141 Chapter 141 Uchiha Kagami sharing on the wind blade, over a meter long, slashed toward Jiraiya in an instant. A gust of fierce wind hit Jiraiya's face as he swung his lightning flame blade forward. The crackling lightning encasing the blade shattered the wind blade on contact, but the force slightly slowed Jiraiya's movements. Danzo didn't waste the opportunity. He drew a specially crafted shuriken infused with wind-natured chakra, making its edges razor-sharp, and thrust it at Jiraiya's chest. Jiraiya, I'll make you realize how foolish it is to oppose me, Danzo said coldly. Oh, really? Jiraiya gave a small smile and swung the lightning flame blade again. Clang, clang, clang. A rapid series of metallic clashes echoed as Jiraiya and Danzo's shuriken collided dozens of times in mere moments. Despite the shuriken's specialized craftsmanship, the relentless strikes from Jiraiya's lightning flame blade had left it covered in dents, ready to break at any moment. Danzo, sensing the shuriken's impending destruction, jumped back and hurled it. The spinning weapon tore through the air, carrying a blast of gale force wind. Earth-style wall. Jiraiya stomped the ground, raising a solid earthen wall to effortlessly block the attack. His mastery over earth-natured chakra had reached the point where summoning such walls was almost instinctual. Without hesitation, Jiraiya threw one of his specially prepared shuriken and cast the shuriken shadow clone jutsu. The single shuriken multiplied into over 1,000, raining down on Danzo from every direction. Not bad. You've got a decent grasp of Hiruzen's technique, Danzo muttered, performing his own jutsu wind-style vacuum wave. He exhaled a slicing, scythe-like wind from his mouth. Though it was a lower-level jutsu, its destructive power was immense, capable of severing chakra itself. The wind wave swept through half of the shuriken clones, reducing them to nothing. The remaining half shot toward Danzo, who unsheathed a ninja blade from his back and skillfully deflected every last projectile. Though not as renowned as Sakumo Heitake, Danzo was a skilled swordsman in his own right. Wind-style vacuum bullet. Danzo took a deep breath and expelled a compact blast of wind shaped like a sphere. It sped toward Jiraiya like a cannonball. Lightning Style, Thunder Blast Strike. Jiraiya thrust his lightning flame blade forward, releasing a bolt of lightning that pierced the wind sphere. The lightning exploded inside the sphere, shattering it completely. Looks like I'm not too late. A voice rang out as Isamu arrived on the battlefield. He took in the sight of Jiraiya and Danzo locked in combat without a hint of surprise. Jiraiya had already informed Isamu of his plan to kill Danzo. When Isamu first heard of it, he was shocked, but after his initial surprise, he had tried to talk Jiraiya out of it. Danzo was part of the village's upper echelon. If news of Jiraiya's actions leaked, it would destroy his future or worse. Jiraiya could be branded a rogue ninja and hunted by the village. Jiraiya had just been elevated to Konoha's leadership, and the Senju clan was finally starting to recover. Isamu couldn't allow Jiraiya to throw that all away. But Jiraiya had revealed that Danzo had attempted to assassinate him. If Jiraiya didn't kill Danzo, Danzo would keep coming after him. Upon hearing this, Isamu's stance shifted completely. He now supported Jiraiya's decision. Protecting Jiraiya was paramount. If anything happened to him, the Senju clan would once again face the threat of annihilation. And Danzo was one of the key reasons the Senju had fallen so far. The Senju held nothing but hatred for Danzo. Water Style, Waterfall Basin. Isamu unleashed a powerful water jutsu as he joined the battle. A towering wave surged forward, crashing toward the root shinobi surrounding the area. The root ninja, who had abandoned their barrier to focus on attacking Kakuzu under the command of an elite jonin, found themselves overwhelmed. Though Kakuzu was powerful, he had been struggling against the elite forces. His fire mask beast had already been destroyed, and his lightning mask beast was now trapped. Isamu's arrival relieved half of Kakuzu's burden as the root forces split to engage the new threat. Danzo's expression darkened the moment Isamu arrived. He knew he had fallen into Jiraiya's trap. Jiraiya's decision to go to the iron mining town alone wasn't due to overconfidence or recklessness. It had been bait designed to lure Danzo out. With Isamu now in the fray, the odds had evened out. Danzo scanned the area, but there were no signs of other Umbu reinforcements. His heart sank. Jiraiya had only called for Isamu. He was here to kill Danzo. If Umbu had arrived, they wouldn't have had the authority to kill a village elder without the Hokage's approval. They could, at best, apprehend and seal Danzo. But Isamu wasn't Umbu. He hated Danzo with every fiber of his being. If Danzo died here, Isamu wouldn't breathe a word to anyone. Isamu, do you really think you can endure my wrath? Are you prepared to see the Senju perish because of you? Danzo threatened. Killing you is the only way to lift the shadow of annihilation from the Senju. Letting you live is the true threat to our survival, Isamu shot back. Danzo, this is your end. A scheming, small-minded ninja like you doesn't deserve to lead this village. Danzo's face twisted in rage. Very well, Isamu. I'll show you how I intend to wipe the Senju from existence. Do you really think you can defeat me? With a sinister laugh, Danzo reached up and ripped off the cloth covering his eye, revealing a three-tomo Sharingan, spinning slowly but ominously. Chapter 142 Chapter 142 Danzo's true trump card. Seeing Danzo reveal a Sharingan, Jiraiya wasn't surprised. That I was taken during the latter part of the First Shinobi World War when Danzo killed his comrade, Uchiha Kagami, during a retreat. Isamu froze for a moment upon seeing Danzo's Sharingan. Few outside the highest echelons of Konoha knew Danzo possessed one. This was a tightly held secret because the Konoha leadership understood the consequences if the Uchiha clan found out. The fallout would be catastrophic. Though Isamu was deeply shaken, he quickly suppressed his emotions and refocused on the battle at hand. Danzo's squad of root shinobi were top-tier elites, outfitted with advanced gear and trained to fight in perfect synchronization. Every jutsu they knew could be seamlessly combined in combat. At the moment, 2 root jonin and 2 elite shinin were coordinating their attacks to pin down Isamu. Meanwhile, Kakuzu was dealing with another group led by an Umbu jonin and supported by 2 elite shinin. Don't engage them in close quarters, they're likely all equipped with a terrifying sealing jutsu, Jiraiya warned Isamu and Kakuzu. Root shinobi were machines of war, trained to sacrifice themselves without hesitation to create an opening for their comrades. Jiraiya suspected they all knew a technique capable of absorbing chakra and sealing it away. One of the root jonin, who had just been blasted apart by a chakra beam, had tried to use such a sealing jutsu moments earlier. Jiraiya didn't know its name, but its ability to absorb and seal chakra was undeniable. If Isamu or Kakuzu were caught, their power would be drastically reduced. Jiraiya, you should consider it a privilege to witness my true power before you die, Danzo said coldly. His right eye surged with an intense, menacing energy as the 3-tomo in his Sharingan began to spin. The Sharingan's most terrifying trait was its ability to cast genjutsu in an instant. There was a saying that circulated across the shinobi world: if you face an Uchiha with awakened eyes, fight with your own eyes shut. Never look into those cursed eyes. That advice wasn't without reason. Anyone could fall into a genjutsu at any moment. In large-scale battles, it often took 2 shinobi working in tandem to have any chance of overcoming one Uchiha. One-on-one, the odds of victory were slim. Jiraiya suddenly felt an overwhelming mental pressure envelop his mind. In an instant, his hostility toward Danzo waned, but the sensation passed quickly. The oppressive mental force dissipated without a trace. Jiraiya's Eye of Insight had nullified the genjutsu, capable of dispelling anything below S rank. Against Sharingan genjutsu, it was a powerful counter. He now understood the nature of Kagami's right eye. Its genjutsu ability could subtly alter a target's will. This technique was terrifying. Those caught in it would view enemies as allies and let their guard down long enough to be killed. Danzo's fanatical hold over his root shinobi likely owed much to this eye's power. Danzo took advantage of Jiraiya's momentary lapse to launch a wind release barrage. Countless wind blades and highly compressed wind orbs hurtled toward Jiraiya. 10 myriad thunder prison. Jiraiya unleashed an S-rank lightning release technique, summoning a massive surge of lightning. The storm tore through the wind orbs and blades before racing toward Danzo. What? Danzo growled, his expression shifting to shock and disbelief. He had been certain that his genjutsu had worked. How had Jiraiya broken free so quickly? Danzo knew Jiraiya was proficient in S-rank lightning release techniques, but the raw power of this one was far beyond his expectations. Regaining his composure, Danzo pulled out a summoning scroll, slapped his palm down, and summoned 3 massive stone monuments. These monuments had been specially crafted to counter lightning release techniques. Their construction had drained enormous resources, and even with all of Danzo's influence, he had only managed to create 3. The lightning storm struck the monuments, its force dispersed across the stone. However, cracks spread rapidly, and after a few seconds, the first monument shattered. Lightning surged forward, continuing toward Danzo. Though the jutsu's power had been significantly weakened, Danzo still had to rely on wind release to shield himself from the remaining energy. That was an incredibly powerful lightning release technique, Danzo admitted. Your talent is extraordinary, Jiraiya. With such potential, why must you insist on walking a path toward death? Danzo sighed heavily. He had tested his monuments against A-rank lightning release techniques before, and they had only sustained minor damage. Yet Jiraiya's S-rank jutsu had obliterated them. Danzo, do you really think you're worthy of being my leader? Jiraiya shot back. I understand your pride, Danzo replied. If I were in your position with such power at a young age I, too, would be arrogant. You've earned it. But remember, a genius who hasn't fully matured is no true genius. I'll give you one more chance. Serve under me, and I'll spare you. Push me too far, and even begging won't save you. Danzo removed his upper garments, revealing pale, scarred skin on the right side of his body. Veins bulged like tree roots, and his right arm was bound in a faintly yellow metal. Jiraiya's expression darkened. Danzo was finally preparing to unleash his full power. Chapter 143, Chapter 143, Something's off. The moment Jiraiya saw Danzo, he knew Danzo had already transplanted Hashirama's cells into his body. But the power of Hashirama's cells was overwhelming. There was no way Danzo could control it with his own strength. He needed the Sharingan to suppress it and make it usable. These two forces had to both counterbalance and merge with each other for Danzo to wield them. In the original timeline, Danzo had 10 Sharingan implanted in his arm, along with mastery of the Uchiha clan's forbidden technique. Izanagi a jutsu powerful enough to rewrite reality itself. Even after death, the technique could alter reality to nullify his demise and restore him to life, effectively giving Danzo multiple lives. Now, however, Jiraiya was sure Danzo didn't have nearly that many Sharingan. He couldn't tell exactly how many Danzo had implanted, but it certainly wasn't 10. Since Orochimaru had not yet delved fully into his research, Danzo's body modification techniques would have been crude and experimental at best. Danzo's 10-eyed Sharingan arm in the original timeline was Orochimaru's work, using Hashirama's cells to make it possible. Danzo quickly lifted the seal on his arm, revealing 3 embedded Sharingan. They blinked slowly, each fully developed with 3 tomo. Including the Sharingan in his right eye, Danzo now had 4 Sharingan, granting him 4 uses of Izanagi. Using Izanagi came at a steep price, though. The jutsu consumed an entire Sharingan's chakra, leaving it completely burned out. To kill Danzo now, Jiraiya would have to defeat him 5 times. Jiraiya, Danzo sneered, I've already mastered the power of Hashirama Senju and the Uchiha. You know how strong these forces are. Together, they make me invincible. I gave you countless chances to stand aside. Why didn't you take them? Why insist on walking the path of death? Danzo's voice boomed with arrogance as he unsealed his arm. Power radiated from it, making him feel as though the world should kneel before him. In his mind, he was already a god of the ninja world. Hashirama's power and the Uchiha's might are indeed formidable, Jiraiya said coolly. But you don't have the strength to control them. Jiraiya's tone was icy, betraying no surprise. He had already anticipated Danzo's trump card. Running your mouth won't change anything. Prepare to suffer my wrath. Danzo charged with a burst of speed, his katana gleaming as he became a blur of motion. His strength had surged dramatically after unsealing his arm, just as he claimed. The combined power of Hashirama's cells and the Uchiha Sharingan was terrifying, even if Danzo couldn't fully control it. Still, this power came with a cost. Danzo's chakra consumption skyrocketed, which explained why he kept his right arm sealed. Jiraiya's eyes remained steady. He brought his hands together, channeling natural energy into his body. Chakra fused with the natural energy, transforming into Sage Chakra. Sage markings spread across his face as he entered Sage mode. Oh? Danzo's eyes narrowed. So you've mastered Sage mode. No wonder you're so confident. But if you think Sage mode alone can defeat me, you're a fool. Danzo's tone was dismissive, but inwardly, he was on high alert. He hadn't expected Jiraiya to have mastered Sage mode. Now, it made sense why the elite root squad he sent earlier had been annihilated. A Sage Mode user was beyond what ordinary shinobi could handle, even seasoned elites. If Jiraiya had transformed mid-battle and unleashed powerful Sage Jutsu, the Root Squad wouldn't have stood a chance. Bang! Despite Danzo's speed, Jiraiya's enhanced perception in Sage Mode allowed him to track every movement. The two clashed, Jiraiya's lightning flame blade meeting Danzo's katana. In mere moments, they exchanged dozens of blows. Jiraiya's blade cut through Danzo's katana, leaving a gash across Danzo's chest. Blood trickled from the wound, but the torn flesh began writhing and knitting itself back together. With Hashirama's cells, Danzo possessed immense regenerative power, though it consumed a huge amount of chakra. This brat's talent is terrifying. If I don't eliminate him here, I'll never sit on the Hokage throne, Danzo thought, his face darkening. He formed hand seals as his right eye's Sharingan spun slowly. One of the Sharingan on his arm mirrored the motion. An oppressive, terrifying chakra radiated from the two eyes. Blood dripped from Danzo's right eye and the activated Sharingan on his arm. Jiraiya suddenly felt two mental forces pressing against him. One numbed his hostility toward Danzo, while the other triggered a deep, primal fear. For a brief moment, not even a full second, Jiraiya felt his mind waver. But the sensation vanished instantly, negated by his Sage Mode's heightened awareness. What power, Jiraiya thought. The brief mental attack had revealed the terrifying capabilities of Danzo's Sharingan. Had he not been protected by Sage Mode, he would have been paralyzed by fear and hesitation, giving Danzo an opening to decapitate him. The Uchiha bloodline's power is no joke. Danzo's expression twisted. How? My two Sharingan couldn't influence him? Is Sage Mode really this strong? His mind raced with frustration and confusion. Jiraiya's Sage Mode seemed far stronger than what had been recorded in the old scrolls. Chapter 144, Chapter 144, I am invincible. When Jiraiya entered Sage Mode, Danzo was momentarily shocked but still confident. He thought to himself, Jiraiya hasn't trained in Mount Mayaboku for long. Even if he's managed to access Sage Mode, the amount of natural energy he can absorb must be limited. This Sage Mode can't be that powerful. However, despite the simultaneous attacks from two powerful dojutsu, Jiraiya seemed unaffected. Danzo, unaware of the existence of the Eye of Insight, simply assumed it was Sage Mode's doing. The ancient texts did mention that Sage Mode granted some resistance to Genjutsu, but that was only for lower-level illusions. The Genjutsu Danzo had just used was no ordinary technique. Fueled by a three-tomo Sharingan, even at its weakest, it should have surpassed normal Genjutsu by far. Yet Jiraiya wasn't affected in the slightest. This doesn't make sense, Danzo thought, dumbfounded. Could the texts have been inaccurate? Is Sage Mode far stronger than what's documented? That seemed to be the only explanation that made sense to him. No matter how powerful Sage Mode is, I must kill Jiraiya here and now, even if it means sacrificing this arm, Danzo resolved grimly. Jiraiya smirked, a mocking gleam in his eyes. Such incredible power, yet in your hands, it's so weak. Danzo, I think even a genin with the Sharingan implanted would use it better than you. He was trying to provoke Danzo into making mistakes. An angry opponent always showed more openings. 5 Dragon Bullet Technique. Jiraiya's hands flew through hand seals, and 5 distinct chakra signatures brimming with natural energy erupted from his body. Roar! 5 dragon cries shook the battlefield. 5 elemental chakras coalesced into 5 serpentine dragons, which loomed behind Jiraiya. This composite jutsu was one of the techniques Jiraiya had obtained from the system, a powerful S-rank ninjutsu that unleashed all 5 chakra natures in unison. Jiraiya's natural chakra natures lacked the lightning element, but the system had compensated for that. In the original timeline, Jiraiya had mainly relied on earth and fire-style jutsu, with little proficiency in water or wind-style techniques. As a result, he'd rarely used them in battle. When Danzo saw the 5-dragon technique, his pupils contracted. He could sense its devastating power. Even the battle between Isamu and the others paused as they turned toward Jiraiya's technique, their eyes wide with shock. The 5 dragons roared as they charged at Danzo with blinding speed. Even at Danzo's pace, dodging was nearly impossible. He might not even have time to form seals. An impressive technique, Danzo admitted with a shout. But it won't be enough to harm me. One of the Sharingan implanted in Danzo's arm spun rapidly, blood seeping from its socket. The 5 dragons suddenly slowed, though only briefly, before resuming their original speed. So each Sharingan has its own unique ability, Jiraiya observed. That I must interfere with speed. No wonder Konoha's higher UPS are so wary of the Uchiha clan. The Sharingan's power is too dangerous. Having a clan capable of rebellion at any moment must have made the Konoha council lose sleep. Danzo finally managed to weave his seals. Wood style, violent spear trees. Vines erupted from Danzo's arm, burrowing into the earth. The ground exploded as massive trees burst forth, forming a dense barrier in front of Danzo. The 5 dragons collided with the wooden barrier, unleashing a cacophony of explosions. The ground trembled as the trees began to crack and splinter. What? Is that wood style? I'm not seeing things, right? Danzo-sama just used wood style. He's mastered wood style, such a powerful Kekkai Genkai. As expected of Danzo-sama, the surviving root ninjas were first stunned and then elated. Every Konoha shinobi knew how terrifying wood style was. After all, the founder of Konoha, Senju Hashirama, had used wood style to dominate the ninja world. Even the mighty tailed beasts could be subdued by Hashirama's power. But since Hashirama's death, no one in Konoha had been able to wield wood style, and the village had lost one of its greatest weapons. Now, Danzo had seemingly reclaimed that strength. The root members could barely believe what they were seeing. This can't be real. Danzo, how did you learn wood style? Isamu shouted in disbelief. As a member of the Senju clan, Isamu knew better than anyone how rare and powerful wood style was. No one in the Senju clan had been able to inherit the ability, yet here Danzo, a complete outsider, was using it. How could a non-Senju master wood style? Isamu's mind reeled. Even Kakuzu swallowed nervously when he saw Danzo's wood style. Memories of Hashirama's overwhelming might resurfaced. His fighting spirit wavered immediately. If Jiraiya hadn't sealed his soul, Kakuzu would have turned and fled. Wood style was too dangerous, it wasn't something he could handle. Jiraiya, in this state, I am invincible, Danzo declared smugly, basking in the awe of the onlookers. Crack! But then, to everyone's shock, the massive trees Danzo had summoned began to split apart. One by one, the trees shattered and collapsed under the relentless force of the dragons. Only the water dragon remained intact, the others had dissipated from the chakra drain. Even so, Danzo had failed to completely block the attack. He was blasted backward, slamming into the ground far away. This isn't wood style. Real wood style wouldn't be so weak. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed. He had seen Hashirama's wood style firsthand. No S-rank jutsu could destroy it so easily. Isamu and the root shinobi were equally stunned. Their thoughts mirrored Kakuzu's. This couldn't be true wood style. It was likely some kind of imitation or genjutsu. Chapter 145. Chapter 145. Careless didn't dodge in time. Danzo was blasted back by Jiraiya's ninjutsu, and the air suddenly fell into a dead silence. The root ninja, in particular, widened their eyes, blinking in disbelief. They couldn't fathom how Danzo, wielding wood release, had been so easily injured by Jiraiya. Some of them even began to suspect that Danzo's wood release was an illusion rather than the real deal. Though they'd never seen true wood release, the ancient texts were clear on its overwhelming power. What Danzo had displayed didn't come close to matching those records. Root Ninja felt a mix of frustration and disappointment. I knew it. Danzo mastering wood release? Not a chance, Isamu muttered, his shock at seeing Danzo sent flying beginning to subside. If Danzo had truly mastered wood release, they'd all be dead by now with no hope of victory. I've fought Senju Hashirama before. The power of his wood release is incomparable to what Danzo just used, Kakuzu said, though he was clearly embellishing. Hashirama had never actually attacked him with wood release, but that didn't stop him from bragging. If Hashirama's strength hadn't been overwhelming, Kakuzu wouldn't have thrown a shuriken and fled without hesitation. But that wasn't an illusion just now. Danzo has definitely mastered some kind of wood release like jutsu. Let's finish these grunts off quickly and help Jiraiya, Isamu said firmly. He unsheathed his blade, infused it with chakra, and unleashed a torrent of lightning that merged with his water release technique. The power of his jutsu increased dramatically, catching a root elite off guard and killing him instantly. With one elite ninja down, the root formation fell apart. Their ability to hold off Isamu relied entirely on their coordinated group tactics. Now, with their formation broken, they could no longer keep Isamu at bay. How could this be? Would release his defense, how could it be broken? Danzo crashed to the ground and looked at Jiraiya, a flicker of fear rising in his heart. His trump cards were the power of the Sharingan and wood release. Now, both had failed against Jiraiya. It was hard for Danzo to accept that Jiraiya had grown this powerful. His chest was caved in, with multiple broken ribs and a fist-sized wound bleeding profusely. Even with Hashirama's cells implanted, recovering from such severe injuries would not be easy. Danzo's face burned with humiliation. He'd just declared himself invincible moments ago only to be sent flying by Jiraiya in the next instant. It was beyond embarrassing. Danzo, I told you before, those powers are beyond your control, Jiraiya said coldly. Now that he had broken Danzo's wood release defense, he had a clear sense of its strength or lack thereof. It wasn't true wood release. Danzo had only recently transplanted Hashirama's cells and couldn't tap into the technique's full potential. Moreover, Danzo's limited chakra reserves and lack of any special bloodline made it impossible for him to fully wield Hashirama's power. Just being able to use wood release at all was already a significant feat for Danzo. In this form, I am invincible. You cannot defeat me. Danzo roared as he struggled to his feet. He'd been careless. He hadn't dodged because he'd assumed his wood release could withstand Jiraiya's attack. But who would have thought that the jutsu's power would fall so short? Shungaku Shadow Assassination Formation. Jiraiya wasn't about to give Danzo time to recover. His chakra surged as he summoned 7 shadow clones, which scattered and charged at Danzo alongside his main body. In Sage mode, each shadow clone held nearly the same chakra as Jiraiya's main body. However, each clone could only withstand a single attack before dispersing and losing all its chakra. What made Sage mode truly terrifying was Jiraiya's chakra regeneration. No matter how much chakra he used, it would be replenished almost instantly. In this state, Jiraiya effectively had unlimited chakra. However, if he exited Sage mode, he'd face a period of extreme exhaustion. Danzo's right Sharingan began spinning rapidly as he tried to discern which of the figures was Jiraiya's main body. The Sharingan's greatest strength lay in its ability to track even the fastest movements and distinguish between real bodies and shadow clones. Yet Danzo's expression darkened. Despite his Sharingan's enhanced perception, he couldn't tell Jiraiya's main body from his clones. All of them radiated the same chakra. That meant every clone's attack would be just as powerful as the main body's. He'd have to defend against all of them equally. How is he this strong? Danzo cursed internally. Jiraiya's chakra reserves were monstrous, far beyond anything a normal human should possess. They rivaled even those of a tailed beast. The Uzumaki clan was renowned for its abundant chakra, but compared to Jiraiya, they were nothing. When Uzushio fell, Danzo had led the Umbu team responsible for its destruction. Even Uzushio's leader hadn't possessed chakra of this magnitude. In Danzo's experience, only Hashirama during his life had chakra comparable to a tailed beast. Could he have the sage body too? The thought struck Danzo like a thunderbolt. Though Jiraiya had informed Hiruzen Sarutobi of his awakening to the sage body, Hiruzen had kept it secret. If word got out, other villages would surely send their strongest to assassinate Jiraiya. Realizing this, the Sharingan implanted in Danzo's arm began spinning wildly. Chapter 146 Chapter 146 Izanaga Danzo was prepared to use Izanaga. There was no way he could block the Shungaku shadow assassination formation. Under such an attack, death was inevitable. Even with the power of the Sharingan and Senju Hashirama cells, he couldn't withstand this technique. In his mind, Danzo calculated his odds. Even if he fought with all his strength, he could only fend off 6 shadow clones at most. The remaining clones would inevitably land fatal blows. To survive this level of assault, he had no choice but to activate his Izanagi. Puffed, puffed. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Jiraiya and his shadow clones closed in. Each clone drove their lightning flame blade into Danzo's body before vanishing into smoke. Danzo's organs were shredded, and 7 gaping wounds oozed blood profusely. Jiraiya's true body stepped in and decapitated him with one swift slash. Danzo-sama. The Root Shinobi, witnessing Danzo's head fly, let out horrified cries. He was their leader, their reason for existing. If Danzo died, they would lose all purpose. There would be nothing left in the ninja world worth living for. Even Isamu and Kakuzu were briefly stunned by the speed at which Jiraiya finished him off. But the next moment, their eyes widened in shock. Danzo's corpse suddenly erupted with an immense surge of ocular power, enveloping the surrounding area. The fatal wounds disappeared, and his severed head reattached seamlessly. He stood before them, unscathed. The only visible change was the gray, lifeless Sharingan now closed on his right arm. Danzo had activated his Izanagi at the last moment before death, sacrificing one of the Sharingan embedded in his arm to do so. I knew it. Danzo-sama would never die so easily. Danzo-sama truly is like a god, one Root Shinobi declared in reverence. The others erupted in triumphant cheers. They didn't care how Danzo had survived, only that he had. Purpose returned to their eyes. Moments ago, many had been ready to take their own lives. Isamu and Kakuzu, however, wore grim expressions. They had clearly sensed Danzo's life force vanish entirely just moments before. Now, he was alive and well. Even Kakuzu, with his 5 lives, was baffled. Unlike Danzo, if all 5 of his hearts were destroyed, he'd die permanently. Resurrection was impossible. Yet Danzo had achieved it. This technique, this Izanagi, left a profound impact on both of them. Danzo's strength far exceeded what they had anticipated. Izanagi was a secret technique of the Uchiha clan, one so classified that only those with 3 Tomo Sharingan were even aware of its existence. Neither Isamu nor Kakuzu had ever heard of it. Danzo had learned it thanks to the Uchiha conservatives, who had shared many of their clan's secret techniques with the village in hopes of easing tensions. Since these techniques required Sharingan to use, they believed sharing them would not compromise their clan's power too much. The downside, however, was that the village's higher UPS now knew the vulnerabilities of Uchiha techniques. Yet the Uchiha hoped this transparency would buy them peace. Danzo had seen the potential of these powerful techniques and became determined to embed Sharingan in his body by any means necessary. Talk about a broken jutsu, Jiraiya muttered under his breath. He had prepared himself mentally, but Danzo's resurrection still hit hard. Jiraiya, you cannot kill me, Danzo declared, his voice laced with arrogance. He bit his thumb and slammed his palm on the ground. A massive summoning seal appeared, and a giant, elephant-like beast with a yellow hide materialized before him. The summoned beast specialized in wind release, making it an ideal partner for Danzo. In the original timeline, it had managed to create an opening in Suzuki's Susanoo. The beast opened its mouth wide, unleashing a powerful gale that sucked up everything in the area. Trees, stones, and debris flew toward its maw. Jiraiya could feel the force pulling him forward, despite planting his feet firmly. Earth release, multiple earth walls. Jiraiya stomped on the ground, raising several earthen walls in front of him to block the beast's wind jutsu, but Danzo had already moved behind him, Sharingan spinning once again. 2 of the embedded Sharingan activated, casting a deadly genjutsu aimed at Jiraiya. Danzo was aware that Jiraiya could resist Sharingan illusions, but he assumed it would come at a cost. Surely Jiraiya couldn't nullify these attacks without consequence. Even if he was immune, there had to be limits. Meanwhile, vines sprouted from Danzo's arm, twisting into wooden whips. One vine lashed out to entangle Jiraiya, while the rest struck toward him in a flurry. The Sharingan illusions had no effect on Jiraiya, and as for the wooden attacks, he swung his lightning flame blade, sending out a wave of fiery slashes that severed all the vines. Danzo's wood release was pathetically weak. His arm could only host 3 Sharingan, meaning the technique was clearly underdeveloped. Jiraiya couldn't help but scoff. What are you trying to prove here? If I didn't know better, I'd think you had Rinnegan in that arm. Danzo's summoned beast continued to howl with wind, tearing through Jiraiya's earthen walls. More walls were ripped from the ground as the beast's suction intensified. Once again, Jiraiya found himself caught in its pull. Chapter 147 Chapter 147 Edo Tensei Jiraiya's body was once again dragged backward by an uncontrollable force. Danzo formed hand seals, took a deep breath, and unleashed a massive, highly compressed wind orb from his mouth. Due to the summoning beast's immense suction, the speed and power of Danzo's vacuum great sphere far exceeded what it had been before. Danzo's summoned beast was one he had personally cultivated, greatly enhancing the power of his wind-style techniques. The lightning flame blade in Jiraiya's hand surged with electric energy. With a single slash, streaks of lightning burst forward, shattering the wind orb. Several arcs of lightning continued toward Danzo. Danzo extended a vine from his right arm, smashing the lightning streams before they could reach him. Although Danzo's mastery of wood style could not compare to Hashirama Senju's, its power still far surpassed ordinary ninjutsu. Lightning style, 4-pillar bind. Despite being pulled by fierce winds, Jiraiya's hands moved rapidly to form seals. Giant blue pillars materialized around Danzo's summoned beast, releasing torrents of lightning that struck its body. The beast roared in agony, and the intense pull vanished. Jiraiya immediately used the multi-shadow clone jutsu, creating 3 clones that charged toward Danzo. He had just recently mastered the jutsu and could only manage 3 clones. In comparison, the prince from the original story could create thousands in an instant, a testament to his incredible talent. Moreover, the prince's clones had strong independent wills and could even argue with the original. Jiraiya didn't envy that one bit. He had no interest in highly independent clones. For him, shadow clones should simply follow orders. If they were too independent and as perverted as he was, they might get him into trouble. Though a shadow clone's experiences would return to the original when dispelled, few people could tolerate such scenarios. Jiraiya certainly couldn't. For now, his clones could think on their own but weren't particularly independent and would follow his orders without question. If a day ever came when his clones resisted his commands, he would immediately find a way to strip away their autonomy. Jiraiya planned to use the clones to stall Danzo so he could take down the summoned beast. Defeating Danzo would be nearly impossible without neutralizing the beast first. The strength of his clones was nowhere near that of the clones produced by Shungaku's Shadow Assassination Formation. Still, they could buy him some time. The 3 clones rushed at Danzo, each using different ninjutsu. Ninja Art, Lion's main technique. One clone's hair extended wildly, aiming to bind Danzo. Earth style, Swamp of the Underworld. Fire style, Great Flame Bullet. The remaining 2 clones used earth and fire techniques. Danzo, however, easily countered all of them with his wind style. Though the clones weren't as strong as Jiraiya himself, they could still keep Danzo occupied for a while. Danzo quickly realized Jiraiya's plan to eliminate his summoned beast. Yet, despite his efforts, he couldn't defeat the 3 clones fast enough to stop Jiraiya. Danzo knew his beast was doomed. Earth style, Mud Fall. Jiraiya formed hand seals as he watched the beast slam into the blue pillars. Massive amounts of red mud rained down, burying the beast. Earth style, Falling Earth Cover. Layers of heavy soil crashed down, causing the ground to tremble. The clay splattered everywhere, mingled with blood. Danzo's summoned beast was defeated. Danzo's beast had never been especially strong, it was something he had raised himself. Jiraiya turned toward Danzo, seeing that his 3 clones had been bound by Danzo's wood style. Danzo's brow furrowed slightly at the loss of his beast, but he didn't seem bothered. To him, all tools, whether subordinates or summoned beasts, were just pieces to be sacrificed. Their deaths were never worth mourning. Summoning Jutsu Edo Tensei. Danzo slammed his hand on the ground, and a summoning circle appeared. A coffin, brown with the color of earth, emerged from the center. The lid slid open, revealing a corpse dressed in Kumagakure ninja gear. Jiraiya was surprised to see Danzo using Edo Tensei, but it also made sense. Danzo had access to forbidden techniques, and there was no way someone like him wouldn't have practiced such a powerful jutsu once he understood its potential. The resurrected shinobi wore a Kumagakure headband, marking him as a jonin from the land of lightning. Danzo inserted a tag into the shinobi's forehead, and its eyes snapped open. This corpse was one of the powerful jonin Danzo had secretly collected during the First Great Ninja War. Many elite jonin from both Kumagakure and Kanahagakure had perished during that war, and Danzo had made sure to gather some of their bodies. However, he had never used Edo Tensei to summon anyone of truly high rank because his strength and understanding of the jutsu weren't sufficient. The version of Edo Tensei Danzo had learned was the one developed by the second Hokage, long before Orochimaru had perfected it. As such, the jutsu was still full of flaws. The summoned ninja's strength was far from what it had been at its peak. The only advantage was that they couldn't be killed, only sealed or dispelled. Jiraiya remained calm as the Kumagakure jonin emerged. He was confident that Danzo's version of the jutsu was incomplete, and his sealing techniques would make quick work of it. If Danzo had fully mastered the jutsu, he would have used it in his battle against Sasuke in the original story. The fact that he hadn't meant the summoned ninja wouldn't have been a game changer. Chapter 148 Chapter 148 The ultimate form. As soon as the Edo Tensei was completed, the vines entangling Jiraiya's shadow clone tightened suddenly, causing it to disperse into mist. Jiraiya had known from the start that his shadow clone wouldn't be able to harm Danzo. he only used the clone as a distraction. With power at their level, regular shadow clones were mostly ineffective unless they were specialized techniques like wood clones or lightning clones. Seeing Danzo resort to Edo Tensei, Jiraiya understood that Danzo was now revealing all his trump cards. "Kill him," Danzo ordered the Lightning Country shinobi. "You bastard, Danzo! I'll kill you! I'll tear you to pieces!" A jonin from the Lightning Country, regaining his senses, cursed Danzo with unbridled fury. During the First Great Ninja War, the squad he led, which included his wife and children, had been completely wiped out by Danzo and Hiruzen Sarutobi. His hatred for Danzo was boundless. But even though his mind was clear, his body, under Edo Tensei's control, couldn't resist charging straight at Jiraiya. His hands formed seals with practiced speed, and a sphere of lightning coalesced in his right hand before he launched it at Jiraiya. Jiraiya slashed with his lightning flame blade, sending a powerful arc of lightning that shattered the lightning sphere and struck the jonin, cutting his body cleanly in half. No blood spilled, only countless paper fragments fluttered to the ground before reassembling and healing the jonin's body instantly. He resumed his charge toward Jiraiya. When the second Hokage originally created Edo Tensei, it wasn't meant to rely on the summon ninja's combat strength alone. Instead, he intended for the summon ninja to work as walking human bombs with explosive tags layered on them. The constant detonations would overwhelm enemies. It was only after Orochimaru perfected Edo Tensei that the summon ninja retained combat abilities close to their prime. The jonin's body was covered in explosive tags, and if he got close enough, those tags would detonate instantly, creating a blast capable of killing even cage-level shinobi. Jiraiya leaped back, biting his thumb to draw blood and slamming his hand onto the ground. With a massive expenditure of sage chakra, two small toads appeared on his shoulders, Fukazaku and Shima, the sages of Mount Mayaboku. Summoning them had consumed a large amount of Jiraiya's sage chakra, but he quickly recovered. "Jiraiya, what's the trouble that made you summon us?" Fukazaku asked. He knew just how strong Jiraiya was. In Sage mode, Jiraiya could dominate most opponents unless he encountered the elites of the great shinobi villages. "Two elders, Danzo of the village is trying to kill me for unknown reasons. He's transplanted the cells of Hashirama Senju and the Sharingan of the Uchiha, and he's mastered the Uchiha's Izanage. Fighting him alone is proving difficult, so I summoned you for help." Jiraiya quickly explained Danzo's situation. "Hashirama's cells and the Sharingan? Well, that's quite the combination," Fukazaku remarked. "It's been a while since we've had a proper fight. This should be a good chance to stretch our legs." "Be careful, old man," Shima cautioned. Jiraiya said he can use wood release. It may not be on Hashirama's level, but it's still nothing to take lightly. Being part of Mount Mayaboku's leadership, Shima was well aware of how fearsome wood release could be. Seeing Jiraiya summon the two toad sages, Danzo's expression darkened. He hadn't expected Jiraiya to have a contract with them. "Two elders, please help me take him down," Jiraiya said, pointing to the Edo Tensei-controlled Lightning Country jonin. He intended to seal the jonin before the explosive tags could detonate. "We'll restrain him." "You seal him," Fukazaku said. Edo Tensei could only be neutralized by sealing or dispelling the technique. Fukazaku knew this well. He also knew that Jiraiya had mastered the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques, making him the perfect candidate to handle the sealing process. Fukazaku and Shima simultaneously launched their fighting tongue bind technique. Their long tongues shot out, wrapping tightly around the jonin and immobilizing him. The jonin tried to detonate the explosive tags, but Jiraiya moved too fast. He closed the distance in an instant, his hands flying through a series of seals before slamming his palm against the jonin's abdomen. Sage chakra surged into the jonin's body, forming a seal that locked him in place and suppressed his movements. The entire sequence happened so quickly that the jonin didn't have time to detonate the tags. Seeing Jiraiya seal the jonin so easily made Danzo's heart sink. He unleashed a barrage of wind blades at Jiraiya, but Shima countered by spraying a jet of water that sliced through the wind blades effortlessly, a technique similar to the water-severing wave. Use wind-release dust cloud to block his Sharingan's vision, Fukazaku instructed Shima. Summoning Fukazaku and Shima not only boosted Jiraiya's combat power, but also provided him with tactical support. "I know what I'm doing," Shima shot back before inflating her cheeks and exhaling a powerful wind laced with dust. The swirling dust cloud enveloped the entire area, blocking Danzo's line of sight. This technique was similar to the hidden mist jutsu but far more potent, capable of blinding even the Sharingan. With Danzo's vision impaired, locking onto Jiraiya became much more difficult. Chapter 149 Chapter 149 Tree Root Burial. The wind and sand howled, shrouding the battlefield and drastically lowering visibility. However, Jiraiya, enhanced by Sage Mode's heightened sensory abilities and his keen insight, was unaffected. Despite the storm of sand, he could still lock onto Danzo's position effortlessly. Danzo's expression darkened as he tried to peer through the swirling sands, his Sharingan eyes straining to no avail. Jiraiya had vanished from his sight completely. Danzo knew all too well how terrifying Jiraiya's speed could be. If his Sharingan couldn't track him, defending against Jiraiya's high-speed attacks would be nearly impossible. Danzo began moving rapidly, unwilling to stand still and wait for Jiraiya's inevitable attack. As he moved, the Sharingan on both his right arm and eye spun furiously, searching for any trace of Jiraiya's presence. Wind release, vacuum wave. Danzo swiftly weaved hand signs and unleashed a powerful gust from his mouth, forming a raging tornado aimed at blowing away the thick dust. Yet it was futile. Since the dust had been conjured using sage art, Danzo's jutsu couldn't disperse it completely. The tornado churned with all its might but could only scatter a small amount of the dust, nowhere near enough to clear the area. Realizing his wind release couldn't resolve the situation, Danzo stopped wasting chakra. His eyes darted through the dust-filled battlefield as he moved, searching like a headless fly. Jiraiya watched with a small smile. Danzo had lost his lock on him. From now on, Danzo could only defend passively. Victory was just a matter of time. His Izanagi can alter reality itself, reversing his death. To take Danzo down quickly, we'll need to strike with a one-hit kill before he has time to activate it, Shima said in a low voice. He's got 3 Sharingan left, meaning he can use his Izanagi 3 more times, Fukazaku added. Even if we can't kill him in one blow, we can wear him down until there's nothing left. As soon as Fukazaku finished speaking, he weaved hand signs. Fire attribute Sage Chakra surged through him, and he opened his mouth wide, spewing a massive torrent of molten fire. The wave of flame crashed down toward Danzo with an earth-shaking roar. The blazing torrent, 3 meters high, was condensed with potent fire chakra, creating an inferno akin to molten lava. Would release, bursting tree. Sensing the incoming firestorm, Danzo's hair and eyebrows were instantly singed. Without hesitation, he activated would release. Vines sprouted from his right arm and burrowed into the ground, summoning sturdy trees that erupted from the earth to shield him. The lava-like flame slammed into the wooden barrier, causing it to tremble but holding firm. The trees ignited under the intense heat, but they withstood the brunt of the assault, giving Danzo enough time to retreat. However, the fire wave split in two, flowing around the trees and continuing to burn toward Danzo. So, he can use would release too. I didn't expect that, Fukazaku commented. But it's a far cry from what Hashirama Senju could do, Shima added. They had both seen the legendary god of shinobi in action, capable of defeating the Nine Tails with a single strike. Danzo's would release was nothing compared to Hashirama's. Sage Art, wind release spikes. Shima exhaled a violent gust that coalesced into sharp wind projectiles in midair. The spikes hurtled toward Danzo with incredible speed, whistling as they tore through the air. Danzo turned, cold sweat breaking out as he saw the incoming projectiles. He quickly unleashed compressed wind bullets from his mouth to intercept them, but the wind spikes pierced through the bullets with ease. Ah! A scream tore from Danzo as a spike struck his right leg, shredding it into a cloud of blood and bone. He lost his balance and collapsed. Jiraiya seized the moment, closing the distance in an instant with body flicker. Lightning blazed from the lightning flame blade as it slashed through Danzo's head, leaving nothing but a mangled stump. The combined efforts of Jiraiya, Fukazaku, and Shima had overwhelmed Danzo completely. Their relentless chain of attacks left him no room to breathe. However, an ominous surge of ocular power enveloped Danzo's fallen body. One of the Sharingan on his right arm dimmed, its light fading rapidly. Danzo's body reformed, fully healed. Izanagi had once again altered reality, sparing him from death. Danzo had been prepared. The moment his would release failed to defend against the firestorm, he had readied Izanagi. Such a fearsome technique, Fukazaku admitted. Fortunately, it can't undo the exhaustion of the Sharingan. Otherwise, it'd be unstoppable. Danzo, now revived, glanced at his remaining Sharingan 2 on his right arm and 1 in his eye. Fear weighed heavily on his mind. Against Jiraiya and the two toads, he had no chance of victory in a head-to-head fight. If I don't take one of them down, I'm finished, he muttered, breathing heavily. The Sharingan on his right arm spun rapidly, bleeding as its power drained. Danzo's perception sharpened, piercing through the layers of dust. He locked onto Jiraiya's position and launched himself forward with a sudden burst of speed. The veins and roots on his right arm writhed grotesquely, and thick, gnarled roots burst from his skin, coiling like serpents. Chapter 150 Unleashing every tactic. Danzo had tracked down Jiraiya's location by ruthlessly overexerting the only Sharingan in his right arm, temporarily granting him heightened sensory perception. This ability, however, lasted for only a few precious seconds before fading completely. Meanwhile, thick roots erupted from Danzo's right arm, extending outward at an alarming rate. Powerful chakras surged through the roots, growing more intense by the second. Let's use Gomen, Jiraiya said grimly as he saw Danzo charging straight at them. The sight of Danzo's wildly sprouting roots made Jiraiya realize his intent. Danzo was attempting a suicidal spontaneous tree summoning, a technique meant to ensure mutual destruction. This jutsu was Danzo's most devastating offensive move. Once ensnared, escaping was nearly impossible. Without a strong defense, death was almost guaranteed. However, due to its destructive power, even Danzo couldn't control it fully. Anyone caught in the attack would be consumed by the roots, including Danzo himself. Yet, Danzo could rely on his Izanagi to rewrite reality, avoiding his own death. Jiraiya had no intention of facing the jutsu's full force. Although it wasn't clear what jutsu Danzo had used to locate them, Jiraiya and his allies were confident they could eliminate Danzo before he got close enough to carry out his plan. Danzo would never get the chance to entangle them. Fukazaku and Shima nodded in unison. Sage Art, Gomen. The three shouted as one. Toad oil, blazing fire, and fierce winds erupted simultaneously, merging into a colossal inferno. The sky darkened as towering flames surged forward, turning the ground beneath them to cracked earth and staining the heavens a fiery red. Danzo, who had been charging recklessly forward, was swallowed whole by the raging firestorm. When the flames finally subsided, there was nothing left. Danzo had been reduced to ash. However, a moment later, a terrifying surge of ocular power rippled through the air. Danzo reappeared, unharmed, in front of Jiraiya's group. Izanagi could rewrite reality as long as it was activated before death. No matter how severe the damage, Danzo could revive himself. This time, all three Sharingan in Danzo's right arm had turned dull and lifeless, their power completely drained. Only the Sharingan in his right eye remained, leaving Danzo with just one more chance to use Izanagi. Jiraiya, let's end this here. We can pretend none of this ever happened, Danzo said. If we return to the village, I'll ensure you become the next Hokage. Kill me now, and you'll destroy your political future. As a senior figure of Konoha and a close friend of your teacher, if news of this leaks, you'll be finished. Danzo's bravado had vanished. The overwhelming power of Goemon had shattered his confidence, and with only one Sharingan left, he had no choice but to surrender. But Jiraiya wasn't buying it. You think I need your help to become Hokage? You've overestimated yourself. Jiraiya's scornful laugh echoed in the air. Danzo's plea for mercy was laughable, given how far things had escalated. Jiraiya, are you really ready for a fight to the death with me? Danzo's voice was filled with desperation. Do you really think you've won? I still have secret techniques I haven't used yet. Then try me, Jiraiya interrupted coldly. Danzo's bluff didn't fool him. If Danzo had any powerful moves left, he would have used them by now. In the original timeline, Danzo's most potent sealing jutsu was the reverse force symbol seal, which required sacrificing his own life to activate. The jutsu's effects couldn't be undone, even with Izanagi. However, Jiraiya wasn't worried. Even if Danzo had mastered that sealing technique, Jiraiya could avoid it. Sage Art, Hair Needle Senbon. Jiraiya gave Danzo no time to recover. Infused with Senjutsu Chakra, his hair transformed into countless needle-like projectiles that shot toward Danzo like a storm. Shima added a wind-release jutsu to amplify the attack, accelerating the Senbon's speed and expanding their range. Danzo's vision was obscured by dust and wind, leaving him unable to defend himself. Blood sprayed from his body as the needles pierced through him. Fukazaku followed up with a lightning-fast tongue lash, shattering Danzo's skull. Danzo's last Sharingan spun wildly as Izanagi activated one final time, undoing his death. Jiraiya, are you really prepared to die alongside me? Danzo roared, fear seeping into his voice. With his last Sharingan consumed, he had no more lifelines. One more death would be permanent. Danzo's regret was palpable. He never should have come after Jiraiya in person. Yet regret couldn't change his fate now. Danzo, you claim to bear Konoha's darkness, but you've been consumed by it. You've become a rotting root buried deep underground. It's time for you to be cut away. Jiraiya's voice was cold and resolute. In the past, Danzo had helped stabilize the village after the second Hokage's death. But now, he had become a cancer that needed to be excised. Konoha will never thrive without someone shouldering the darkness where the sun doesn't shine. Danzo shouted. You and Hiruzen are too blind to see it. Under your rule, the village is doomed to decline. Danzo's eyes burned with fanaticism as he tore off his cloak, ready to make his final move. This universe grows with every follower. Are you part of Infinite Novel yet?